Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. The International Crimes Tribunal in Dhaka has given a death sentence to the 78-year-old leader and former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, for crimes against humanity, in which she was found guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on the uprising which happened last year. Now, Hasina's presence in India, despite repeated requests from Bangladesh to hand her over, has been a key source of friction between India and Bangladesh. Now, Hasina alleged that the trial was politically motivated. She said exactly, and I'm going to quote, that verdicts announced against me were made by a rigged tribunal established and presided over by an unelected government with no democratic mandate. So, this is what Sheikh Hasina said immediately after the sentence was given. And she also said that I was not given a fair chance to defend myself in the court. But shortly afterwards, Ministry of External Affairs in India has reacted, and in a very short and crisp response, New Delhi has said that India has noted the verdict announced by the International Crimes Tribunal of Bangladesh concerning Sheikh Hasina, and as a close neighbor, India remains committed to the best interests of the people of Bangladesh, including peace, democracy, inclusion, and stability in that country. We will always engage constructively with all stakeholders to that end. Now, this reply, of course, is not very clear as to what India is going to do. But what one can really assume is that it does put India in some way in a tight spot. So, does Sheikh Hasina's sentence is almost like a big crisis for India? So we'll try and explore all these questions. Joining me this evening is former Ambassador Veena Sikri. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. We have international affairs expert, author, and veteran journalist Sanjay Kapoor also with us. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining. And I'll begin with Ambassador Veena Sikri, who almost like specializes in Bangladesh and the crisis which is unfolding over there. Ambassador, what would you really say? How is the sentence of Sheikh Hasina going to play out in India? What should India be doing? And look at the reply which the MEA has given. It's not very clear as to what we are going to do.
Let's be very clear about one thing. Actually, Bangladesh has not made an extradition request because just sending a one liner, they did so in December last year, and now after the verdict they've done it again, accompanied by some threatening statement saying if you don't send back Sheikh Hasina there'll be more enmity, etc. That is not an extradition request. An extradition request is a complex process. It has to be accompanied by all the legal documents. How has Sheikh Hasina been convicted? Where has the conviction come from? Which court? What were the evidence given? What was the decision of the judge? The whole thing has to come, and India has to examine it from the legal point of view, very, very carefully from all points of view. So only when that process is complete, and during that process, when it takes place in India, Sheikh Hasina is in her right, within her full rights to file a case in the courts in India. If she wants to bring in, then Bangladesh lawyers can also appear, etc. So we know from my experience of extradition requests with many countries, and I've dealt with some of them, it can take up to years. But the beginning has to be with the proper legal documents. So that is why India's statement on this subject has been very clear that we have at heart the best interests of Bangladesh people, and we will take into account the views of all stakeholders. So Sheikh Hasina is certainly a stakeholder, one of them. Bangladesh government is another stakeholder. We do also know that this whole business of the trial has been done by what is called the ICT, International Crimes Tribunal. That's really not valid at all, because the ICT was set up way back in 1973 by Sheikh Mujib when he was Prime Minister under an Act of Parliament. And then in 2009, Sheikh Hasina updated that earlier parliamentary act, and she started the process of the ICT in 2010. Many people have been tried, their sentences have been completed, executed, etc. So now suddenly for Mohammed Yunus to say, oh, but this ICT will now try Sheikh Hasina. There is no parliament to give him the validity for that. He is a constitutionally unelected government. He's an interim regime. We should have been there for 3 months, held elections and gone. That has not happened. So all these issues come into play when we talk about the validity of the trial. And we also know that even the
Ask you, Ambassador Sikri, that is, I mean, and I want you to explain that as well. That is India legally obliged to extradite Sheikh Hasina?
Not at all. We have an extradition treaty between India and Bangladesh, and the clauses of the extradition treaty are completely clear. And following it is precisely based on the laws of the extradition treaty, the various articles, and so on, that I'm saying that even the request for extradition has to be accompanied by a legal document saying on what basis the request has been made. You can't just send a one-liner saying so and so's in your country, we want so and so back. No, that doesn't. Is not how it works. And even the judges of the ICT, the judges of the entire judicial system of Bangladesh have been completely changed by during the uh, Muhammad Yunus regime. The old judges were pushed out by mobocracies, by mob violence, by attacks on homes, and new judges have been appointed without any mandate. You'll be surprised to know that the lawyer, the defense lawyer, who in the ICT was defending all the Jamaat-e-Islami people who were accused of war crimes, etc., and working on their cases, suddenly he's the chief prosecutor of the
Right.
ICT. And he's the one who prosecuted, Sheikh Hasina. So all there are many factors. I think it's a very long
Right.
drawn out.
But a lot is being now discussed in the diplomatic circles about this Article 6.1 and A3. Now, just to give a little perspective to the viewers, and then Ambassador Sikri, if you could explain that the most significant clauses in the treaty in Hasina's case are Article 6.1 and Article A3. 6.1 provides an explicit exception that could mean that the ousted leader can remain in India. The exception states that extradition may be refused if the alleged offense is considered as offense of a political character. Now, that is point number one. Then Article 8.3 strengthens Article 6.1 by stating that extradition can be denied if the request is not made in good faith or not in the interest of justice. Now, this case of dual criminality, if you could explain, ma'am, that of course now she's been tried by the ICT. The request is made in good faith. So, what happens then if you look at these two particular articles? If you can explain that in
Well,
context with.
dual criminality is very simple. That is, a crime has to be accepted in Bangladesh. The crime of which she has been convicted in Bangladesh has to be accepted in India under our legal parameters, our Nyaya Samhita, and all of that, as also as a crime. So that, of course, we have to look at exactly what has she been condemned to death for. Is it for genocide? Is it for crimes against humanity? All that has to be looked into. What does our Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita say about crimes against humanity, genocide, etc.? All that is a legal question to be properly examined. The second clause about refusing extradition if you think it's a political case, that's another aspect. That has this trial been politically motivated? Has it been conducted under the laws of Bangladesh itself? Or has it been, as I said, that the way in which the judges were removed, the way in which the ICT was suddenly yanked out as, being the best forum, quite out of the blue? How can a committee, crimes tribunal, which was set up for trying 1971 war crime individuals, accused of committing war crimes, how can that suddenly be used for this? So there are so many questions. It is best left to the lawyers to examine all these questions. I don't think one should jump the gun on any one of them. Let the request come in the proper format with all the accompanying legal documents, and I'm sure our lawyers and the Indian Ministry of Law and so many others will have more than enough time to examine these aspects.
But, ma'am, do you think that a third body, like UN or some international body, can they interfere in a matter like this? That is also something which is being, discussed on the social media. So, do you think that a third body, I mean, a third body or some international body can interfere in this matter, given the fact that there's violence in Bangladesh? It could lead to more killings. Then the situation is so volatile in Bangladesh. So, can a third body also interfere in this matter?
I don't know what volatility you're referring to. I can certainly say that when the verdict was about to be pronounced, Sheikh Hasina called for a lockdown, a band in Dhaka. And the band was successful all over the country. Nobody stirred out of their homes. Everybody was. So, in fact, I think, if anything, the Muhammad Yunus regime should be very worried by this kind of, absolute response to show that the Awami League's vote bank is still intact. So, talking about international, I do not think that that India would ever accept any international interference. But what is being talked about, that Sheikh Hasina has herself said that she is more than willing to appear before or to participate in any investigations which are free, fair, and unbiased. And in this context, she has referred to the ICC, the International Criminal Court, which is based at The Hague. We
Yes.
already know that a legal entity from the UK, Doughty Street Chambers, who's representing the Awami League, has already filed a notice before the prosecutor of the ICC at The Hague, and mentioning what is happening in Bangladesh to the Awami League individuals. 400 have been killed, and all the problems, the law and order, the control of the media, all that is happening in Bangladesh. Secondly, there are other Bangladeshi lawyers who have also filed cases in or notices before the ICC at The Hague, talking about the control of the media, talking about the attacks on minorities, the way they are still continuing, the rapes, the lynchings, the burnings, the destruction of homes and property, and so on. All this has been brought before the ICC. There's no indication yet about whether the ICC, what they intend to do about it, and whether they're going to hold a hearing or call for evidence, etc. But there is this question of the ICC, which even Sheikh Hasina has accepted uh, as an entity before which she is agreeable to argue her cases, and her legal representatives in the UK have already gone to that place. So that could be there. But I do not see beyond this any third party or third country interference. The UN has regretted the question of the death sentence. Even the UN Human Rights Office has regretted this question of the death sentence. There are a lot of comments, adverse comments on that you don't suddenly, the fastest possible trial in Bangladesh, which never held such a fast trial before in Bangladesh, and you come up with this death sentence and so on. It's very, it doesn't sound very serious as far as justice is concerned.
Right. In fact, I'll take one or two questions more, ma'am, because I know you have to go, and then I'll come to Sanjay, for giving us the entire perspective. There is a feeling that it does put India in some kind of a tight spot, given the fact that, yeah, there are bordering areas neighboring to Bangladesh. Then we had a recent Red Fort blast, and now this crisis. How is Modi government going to handle this? Is it not like a crisis-like situation? Or will there be no pressure on Prime Minister Modi to hand over Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh? Because if she has to challenge the verdict, she needs to go back to Bangladesh, or she may face arrest. That is also one condition. So, does it put pressure on the Indian government now, according to you?
Uh, for me, I would say that as far as the extradition of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is concerned, there is no pressure upon the government because we have not even seen the documents. So where can the pressure arise if even the documents, the papers, the legal proceedings hasn't come to India? So there can be no pressure on that. Question of her challenging this verdict in the High Supreme Court of Bangladesh, that doesn't arise because if she goes back, they'll immediately arrest her and put her to death. So there will be no
But
question of.
Ambassador, if Sheikh Hasina continues to stay in India for a longer time, can it not become a security crisis for India as well? Because the lumpen elements might cross over, and they might try to take some sort of a revenge, might try to incite some violence in the border states of India. So doesn't it become a security threat the longer Sheikh Hasina continues to stay in India?
The question, there are two separate questions here. The one is whether Sheikh Hasina staying on in India should be accepted or not. And there are many people trying to use a lot of arguments like you're using, send her back, and so on. I don't think there's any pressure on India to send her back. I do not think the government of India will submit to any pressure. In fact, if anything, the death sentence will probably ensure that she does not go back or that she's not extradited back to Bangladesh. The second aspect that you've asked about, which is an entirely separate one and not necessarily linked at all to the presence of Sheikh Hasina in India, is the security issue in Bangladesh, which has been caused by the manner in which the regime change operation took place last year and the role of Pakistan in this regime change operation. We know that the regime change operation was orchestrated by external powers, but Pakistan was the conduit. And Pakistan has been acting through the Jamaat-e-Islami, which has always been their conduit in Bangladesh. Before 1971, maybe 50 years before 1970, ever since the Jamaat-e-Islami was formed, and post 1971 as well, right to the present day. So the Pakistan is very interested in Jamaat-e-Islami coming to power. The Jamaat-e-Islami itself is very interested in coming to power, and they have been forcing the Yunus regime, because Yunus has just been like being
No, but
manipulated by the Jamaat-e Islami.
what I don't understand, and I find it a little difficult to believe that if the longer Sheikh Hasina continues to stay in India, okay, there is no pressure as far as the extradition treaty is concerned, but morally and politically, doesn't it put more pressure on the Modi government? Because here, I mean, the people will talk about the fact that here you have a prime minister who's been given asylum in India and she's been sentenced by the ICT. The government there, as in the Bangladesh government, has asked the Indian government to hand her over to Bangladesh. So doesn't it put India in a quandary?
No, it does not. Please understand that we have not received an extradition request. There are no legal papers. Until India examines those legal papers, there is no process. Please understand, this is the legal process. You don't get, bites coming in the newspapers or bites given at press conferences, and you accept that as the gospel truth and then send Sheikh Hasina back. Please understand, extradition is a very serious, complex legal process. First
Hmm.
and foremost, a legal process. And India has statement has been very carefully worded, because till we see the documents, we do not know anything about what this legal process has been all about. We do
Right.
know that it's the fastest ever legal process ever conducted in Bangladesh. But other than that, what were the evidences given? What is the crime that she's been accused of? Why has she been given the death sentence? None of this is known to us at the moment. So how is the pressure there when this is happening? We do know, for example, you do know that Honorable His Holiness the Dalai Lama has been in India for decades. And
Hmm.
India has been quite okay in managing any kind of pressure that has come to us on that
Okay, so
score.
you are
So
saying that
please,
India will try and manage Sheikh Hasina just like it has managed Dalai Lama?
I am not drawing a parallel between the two cases. I'm just saying that India is aware of what happens in extradition processes. India herself has demanded extradition for various individuals who are living in other countries. We know how those individuals and countries have handled those extradition requests. We are very familiar with these processes. We're
Okay.
very familiar with these processes. There's no need to try and make a pressure point out of it. That is
No,
wrong and it's
it's
incorrect.
not a pressure point, but my last question before I let you go, because I know you're in a hurry, and then I'll come to Sanjay. That Ambassador Sikri, according to you, in your wisdom, for India's benefit, should Sheikh Hasina continue to stay in India, or should the government find some alternative? If not in India, maybe she should be sent back, if not to Bangladesh, to some other country. That is also one option which is being discussed.
I do not think the relations between India and Bangladesh in any way depend at this present point on the presence of Sheikh Hasina or not. The relationship between India and Bangladesh is being moved by Yunus, backed by the Pakistanis and the Jamaat-e Islami, in a totally different direction. Yes, there are security threats coming from that, from the way in which the Pakistan army is trying to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army, the way in which the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed have said we have sent our people over there, the way in which Asim Munir is talking about an attack from the east, the way in which the Naib Amir of the Jamaat-e-Islami spoke in New York a couple of weeks ago, saying that I've got 5 million people waiting to cross over. All those are attempts to build pressure on India. All those can be potential security threats. All those are issues that the government of India is very carefully looking at. We are fully capable of defending our borders, and we are looking at how it should be done, what should be done. I think we are very serious about that. But to, in some convoluted way, to link it to Sheikh Hasina and to say that if we send her back, everything will be hunky dory, please. International politics is not conducted like that. Security
Oh,
issues are not dealt with by that, like that. And I don't think
oh,
India has ever dealt in such an immature way with security threats. We have not. We have been very serious about it. We are very, very careful in what we do. We take our own time in deciding. We have to study the legal processes carefully before we do anything else about it. So this is what I have to say. I think I have to leave now.
yeah,
And
yeah.
certainly I'll be
All
happy
right,
to hear
ma'am. Thank you so much.
later. I'll be happy to hear later what Sanjay had to say. And if I have
Yeah,
something to say on
yeah.
that as well, I'll be happy to give my verdict there as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you,
Bye.
ma'am. Thank you so much. And I'll come to Sanjay now. Sanjay, what according to you is the situation like for India with Sheikh Hasina continuing to remain in exile? She's been given an asylum here now with increasing pressure from Bangladesh's side. Also, the pressure of the verdict which has come in, where she's been sentenced. Uh, what do you think is in the best interest of India? And does it not put India in a tight spot? That's a question. Is it like a crisis like situation for India at the moment?
I don't think so. I really appreciate Mrs. Veena Sikri's statement. I think she clarified a whole lot of things that you probably had doubts in your mind about it. The fact of the matter is that India has to look after her friend. Number one. I mean, I saying it in non-diplomatic language. She has been very good to us, although she made it difficult for us to engage diplomatically with other political parties and with the people of Bangladesh. But that's a minor thing. But at the moment when there's a crisis going on, she has to be defended. And I think there is a consensus between Congress and the BJP on this, because the Indian National Congress has been very, they were the ones who started off defending Sheikh Hasina, and prior to that, Mujibur Rahman, Bangabandhu helped in creating Bangladesh. That was Mrs. Indira Gandhi's major achievement. And that has kind of provided protection on the other side of border from the eastern side. And we need to be mindful of that. And the if we are not mindful of that, and we are driven by some other reasoning or some other logic or some other consideration, then it'll be a folly, primarily because Mrs. uh, Hasina Wajed has been extremely benevolent in trying to look after India's security issues, although it's a 4,000-kilometer border, carved out in the most obnoxious way, created things like the Siliguri corridor or chicken neck, and which kind of makes India very vulnerable when it's dealing with China. But having said that, we have to carry on. We have to carry on and to convince our neighbors that this is our policy. We follow a certain path of secularism, and the leaders who fit into our beliefs and in our orientation are the ones who will be protected. You can't have a situation where Mr. Muhammad Yunus comes in, and despite the fact that he says that he will restore democracy and he will do all that, he has not done that. In fact, he has carried on merrily for so long, and for what joy? Just to have one event after another and delegitimize India's relationship with Bangladesh. And how do we kind of countenance what is going to come later, and especially the one pertaining to Bangladesh close ties with Pakistan? That really makes us see red, and we don't know how to deal with it, primarily because we understand that this is not good news for India, and India has to find a way to ensure that the purpose of 1971 war is not undone. Because what we are trying to see, what we are seeing at the moment, despite all the reservations people expect are raising about Mrs. Hasina being here, and the ICT is announcing its verdict, that the entire effort, the entire sacrifice of our soldiers in 1971 war is sought to be undone. And from 1971 right up to 2024, when Hasina has been there, this particular policy has been good to us. And despite some hiccups in between, when you have a hostile government in Bangladesh, we have managed to steer it very clearly away from uh, the possibility of India, Pakistan and West Pakistan, East Pakistan, West Pakistan coming together, or Bangladesh and Pakistan coming together. But now that threat is looming very large, because now you have Mr. Asim Munir and the defense chief and others who go to Pakistan, to Bangladesh, and sign treaties. And this worrying, it's a very worrisome situation. And on
Right.
top of that, the tribunal out there in almost like a kangaroo court, without taking into consideration the point of view of Sheikh Hasina, in a most arbitrary manner decide to have a verdict, and that too on the day when Mrs. Hasina is celebrating her wedding anniversary. On this, although she's 78-year-old, but she was celebrating her wedding anniversary, and that is the day when they announced the verdict. So a lot of worrying things are happening at the moment, and we need to keep a watch on that.
But you feel that India's own extradition act, which is of 1962, it provides several legal barriers to surrendering the individuals who are charged in politically sensitive cases. There is one section 31 which deals with the political offense exception, and the clause very clearly says that a fugitive shall not be surrendered if the alleged offense is of a political character. Since Hasina's removal, trial, and conviction follow a domestic political uprising, India can easily categorize the accusation as political. So, which means that India has enough legal buffers by which it will not surrender Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh. Isn't it, Sanjay?
I think so. Sheikh Hasina will not be surrendered. Whatever may be the legal consideration, it will be because all the legal issues take time. They need explanation, they need interpretation, they need articulation. And when you have a situation like this, more so when India is dealing with a friend, somebody who has to be protected and can't be thrown to the wolves in Bangladesh. And despite the fact that she was willing to go back and face trial, she said that very categorically. But I think the Bangladesh government didn't really want her to come back and face trial because they don't want her presence for the Bangladesh elections that take place in February, because they know that she has enormous support, and despite whatever they may have done, it is not going to take them very far. So, having said that, she has managed to stay the ground, and India's attempt to look after her despite the signing of the extradition law, I think it will really continue is the same way.
So we'll have to wait and watch the developments on this story very, very carefully. And the Emmy has given a reaction, but we'll see how the story unfolds in the coming days and weeks. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining on the Federal. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.